listen to that summer night song. Hey, welcome to Beyond Organic Wine. I'm Adam Huss. Thanks so much for listening. This podcast exists because wine is an ancient ecological process of building community and bringing people together to feed something more than just our bodies. Wine grows from perspectives that don't see human creative expression as separate from ecology. Over the last 70 years or so, wine became something else, something limited to a very narrow idea, a reductive and decontextualized consumer product. But with Beyond Organic Wine, I'm trying to recontextualize wine, to re-ecologize it, to give alternative perspectives to the global colonized monoculture that has ignored that great wine grows from a community of life. And if that community isn't healthy and thriving, it doesn't matter what the wine tastes like. It can't be great. I think the best wine comes from communities with so much vitality and joy that they dance and sing together. And that our opportunity as winemakers is to help foster conditions that encourage everyone in the community, all the humans and more than humans, to have the energy and freedom of expression to lend their moves to the dance and to contribute their voices to the song. After talking to hundreds of people who farm organically, biodynamically, regeneratively, or even better, I've discovered a common theme among them when I ask them why they farm this way. Choosing to farm with only organically allowed substances and to do so thoughtfully results when wine growers live on their farms with their families and do at least some of the farming themselves. We have a natural, instinctive drive to protect our families. One of my guests for this interview is a vineyard manager with a young child. You can hear his relief that he gets to raise her on a vineyard that is certified organic and biodynamic. What if we expanded our idea of who is in our families to include all the human and more than human lives our farming and winemaking impacts? Another way to think of this is that love makes better wine. The bigger our love, the greater our wine. So that's why Beyond Organic Wine exists. That's why I do this. Just a reminder that Beyond Organic Wine has moved to Substack. You can subscribe at beyondorganicwine.substack.com. Paid subscriptions make this podcast possible and also get access to all content. So thank you. But there will be lots of great free content as well. Now, let's take a trip to the state of Washington in the U.S. You know Washington. It's that place where it rains so much on the coast that vampires can live there year-round. It's a land for volcano connoisseurs. Its largest city was named for a man commonly known as Chief Seattle, a leader of the Duwamish and Suquamish peoples, who is thought to have said, quote, "Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect," end quote. As well as, quote, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children," end quote. Here are some wine statistics about Washington State. It's the second largest producer of wine grapes in the U.S. after California. It also has the second most organic vineyards after California. But the organic acreage basically didn't increase much over the 10-year period from 2005 to 2015, while the total vineyard acreage increased from 54,000 to 70,000 acres, meaning the percentage of organic vineyards dropped by over 0.5% from 3.7 to 3.1%. Washington has such an incredible climate for growing grapes organically that the only commercial no-spray vinifera vineyard in the world that I'm aware of, Paradisos del Sol, is in Washington. Yet the percentage of organic vineyards is unchanging to decreasing. Meanwhile, just across the southern border, Oregon has a greater percentage of biodynamic vineyards than Washington even has organic vineyards. And Oregon's percentage of organic vineyards is the highest in the U.S., all while Oregon's main wine-growing regions in the Willamette Valley are rainier and largely growing varieties of vinifera that are some of the most sensitive to mildews and rots. So what does this tell us? This tells us that choosing to farm organically, biodynamically, regeneratively, or better is not a matter of what is possible. It is possible. What it is a matter of us deciding to do it. It's a matter of choice. How do we get people to choose better farming? There are a lot of answers to that, but I think many of them involve establishing trust by listening, including them in our community, trying to understand them genuinely without ulterior motives. And look, if I had to express all this in one word, you can probably guess it's love. For this episode, we are visiting one of the only organic and biodynamic certified wineries in Washington State, Hedges Family Estate. My guests are Sarah Hedges Goodart, the director of winemaking and winery operations, and Reed Wilson, the vineyard manager. Hedges sounds like a fascinating place, a biodynamic family winery with around 110 acres and an honest-to-God chateau in the Red Mountain AVA. I hope I've set up that what they're doing is pretty special in their region, and Sarah and Reed have the passion and excitement to match the work. This is a really fun conversation. They bring up some of the less talked about aspects of biodynamics, including the responsibilities of farmers with regards to their employees. This led me to look up the Biodynamic Farm Standard for Demeter USA, which I'll link to in the notes, both for reference as well as for inspiration. Read the environmental statement. Read the biodynamic principle of social responsibility. Cow horns are sexy, I guess, if you're into that kind of thing, but there are some substantive elements to biodynamics that are often overlooked or completely ignored. While some of these principles, like social responsibility guidelines, seem to be little more than value statements, at least they create a culture that gives attention to them. Try this on for size. Quote, agricultural land occupies 50% of the Earth's habitable surface, about 41% of U.S. land. In the U.S., food production contributes 34% of total greenhouse gas emissions. Concerns of climate change cannot be successfully addressed without addressing agriculture's contribution to it. But conversely, agriculture can be a potent solution. Because the underlying theme of the Biodynamic Farm Standard is to generate inputs out of the farm life of the farm system itself rather than importing them from the outside, the heart of a biodynamic farm's fertility system is the sequestering and recycling of carbon. And then ... ending this section with, Demeter's vision is to heal the planet through agriculture. End quote. Does this force me to abide by certain rules or else? No, but it sounds like a culture, an agriculture, that I'd like to be part of. This conversation is full of juicy moments, but one that sticks out to me is when Reed says, and I'm paraphrasing, I want the land to remember me in a way that it's almost like it has forgotten me. That gets me. I want the land to remember me in a way that it's almost like it has forgotten me. Enjoy. Sarah, Reed, welcome. Thanks. We've been talking already for almost a half an hour and I didn't even hit record. And I wish you guys weren't so interesting and fun to talk to because I'm exhausted. And I wish I'd recorded the whole thing. Welcome. Thanks for doing this. It's really nice to meet you guys virtually. And could you just start with a little introduction of yourselves and where you are and why we're talking?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sarah Goodhart. I am the winemaker here for our family wine estate. My parents started it in 1987, actually as a wine export business. So we can get into a little bit of history later if you want. And yeah, so I kind of went the route of summers in the fields and on the bottling line, absolutely hating this industry, and went off to college and thought I was going to have a totally different career, and ended up getting side gigs at wineries to work through college, and really kind of started enjoying it. And so worked my way back from Southern California, Northern California, Southern France, and back home to Washington State. And here I am.
What did you enjoy about it?
So growing up, I did a lot of just, the work that is kind of monotonous, in the fields,
Yeah.
vines, pruning, all of the kind of groundskeeping work. Bottling line is very repetitive. And, so yeah, I didn't really grow up with a lot of the romance of the industry. That being said, my parents threw great dinner parties, always had fun. And So in high school, I was a little more interested in that side of it. And then, yeah, so I went down to San Diego for school, ended up in Santa Barbara, got a job at a winery. And that was kind of my first intro to wine making because during harvest as a kid, I was always in school. And so I got to see the microscopic world of wine and I just got hooked. I just was obsessed with yeast and bacteria and what are they doing and all these flavors and the different varieties. And I just thought it was really fun to play in that world. And so from there, I was just kind of hooked. And
Are you saying microbiology hooked you?
yes, yeah. And I'm not like,
Wow.
if you come here a wine talk for me, I'm not super scientific. I understand how to make wine, but I think that sometimes wine, you can get lost in the science and forget about the history and the artistry and some of those nuances. And so that's originally why I got into it. And now that I've had so many years under my belt, I'm really just fascinated by what's the vineyard giving me and how can I guide it to be what it wants to be without so much of like my ego into it or like how I want it to be. Cause I think that's a little bit more boring. I like the excitement of seeing what these little microbes can do.
That's that, you made me think of some stuff. Multiple things. Did you mention the name of the winery?
So I worked at Santa Barbara Winery in
No. I mean, where you are. Where
Oh,
you?
Hedges Family Estate in
Hedges Family say.
yep,
I don't. Okay.
Southeast Washington. We are in the Red Mountain AVA. So yeah, I've been here since we planted in 1990, and it's about 15 miles west of where my dad grew up, so pretty close to home. And the Hedges family actually goes back in Washington State to the 1800s. We had wheat farms, apple orchards, asparagus, and now we're kind of back into agriculture, doing wine.
Amazing. And you have somebody there with you.
I have Reed here with me.
Hey. So I'll do a little introduction. So my name's Reed Wilson. I'm the vineyard manager for Hedges Family Estate, and we're about 110 acres or so. And
What's the AVA there?
Red Mountain.
Red Mountain. Okay.
Yep, Red Mountain, not Blue Mountain. So yeah, I started here really about 6 months ago or so, and before this, I was helping run a vineyard management company in Southern Oregon, which was really really great. I kind of stumbled upon that job a little bit, but I say it was great just from the different varietals, the different meso and microclimates that we had over there. A lot of fun varietals to grow, and so I really began to understand biodynamic, organic, and conventional farming at that job, and I kind of had to do all of those those different practices all in the same day, which also was eye opening to me and kind of pulled on my heartstrings in the sense of. I mean, I would go out and be spraying, a glufosinate or some type of Roundup type spray, and then in the next moment, I'd be helping prepare some type of biodynamic prep. And so it felt it was tough. And so to get the opportunity to work here at Hedges. Felt right to me because I live on property, so I brought my family with me. We just had a baby in May. Her name is Opal. Shout out to Opal. She's about 2-3 months old now or so. And so, anyways, to bring the family here and to be able to have a vineyard and to farm in a way that I believe is a way to give back to the land. Really feels right, but it feels safe, right? It feels safe for the people coming in the doors and what they're drinking, and it feels authentic that this is something that we're really trying, and I believe organic and biodynamic farming and just kind of farming in general is just you kind of have to. You're gonna have a lot of blocks in your way, and you're really gonna have to look at those blocks and ask yourself, like, is this actually a block? And if it is, what's a way around this, right? And then you might have that answer, but then realize you're going to need 50 other ways to get around that one problem, right?
Yeah.
And then understanding it and looking at it like, maybe not necessarily a problem, right? You kind of have to look at this in managing a little philosophically, because Mother Nature, she takes control of everything, right? So kind of the big joke here at Hedges is like I'm a chlorophyll manager, right? I'm not a vineyard manager. I'm just managing chlorophyll, and so I tried to have fun with that and really look at the vines as individual entities and people. And I swear they are, right? You go and walk the rows and those tendrils are going to come out and grab you. And, the vines are giving off this energy and this vibration that needs to be seen and needs to be heard. And then from there, I make my decisions based off that. What are they telling me? What am I feeling out in the vines? So that's kind of my philosophy and thought. But before Southern Oregon, I was in California and Napa, and I started at Mondavi, and I started as an irrigator over there. I could have been a tractor driver, but I knew vines needed water, so I better start there.
That's great. Yeah. So I mean, just to clarify, Hedges is certified organic and biodynamic. Is that right?
Correct.
Yes.
Right. And yeah, I mean, you guys both brought up really interesting things. The vines and their personality, and you just said that, Reed, and Sarah, you mentioned, sort of letting them speak, sort of following their lead, checking your ego. How do you guys do that? I've been thinking a lot about this. Like like in practical ways, what does that mean to let the vines do their thing, to let them lead?
I think you have to be really comfortable with not having control.
Yes.
And I would say that in your younger years, when you're first learning and you're first starting, it's much harder to do that because you don't have that faith that it's going to work out because you haven't experienced it yet, really. And I think having good mentors in the industry, which I did, I worked for my Uncle Pete for 10 years. And before that, some other great winemakers in California and France. And I just saw them each vintage become a little bit more relaxed with how this was going to turn out or how that was going to turn out, or, oh yeah, well, this block always does this, or this, these grapes always ferment that way. And they just had this faith that it was going to work out. There's like the 2% of the time where shit hits the fan and you're kind of like, oh God, no, what are we going to do? and that to me is where the science comes in for sure. Like you got to know how to fix stuff if it goes wrong. And that's very important. But if you're doing your job correctly and you're paying attention and you're listening, it's kind of like raising kids. Every day you make these decisions with your children and you do not know how they're going to turn out. And it's terrifying. And
we're making this up as we go along.
Yeah. It's like I can't be in my kid's brain and like get them through all these things in life. And it's the same with winemaking and nature and vineyard management. And I love to garden and cook. And if you just kind of treat these items with respect and be a little bit more hands off, they'll give you that respect back, I think.
Nice. Any thoughts, Reed?
Yeah,
same question.
And that's really what's been such a great fit here is exactly what Sarah is saying is, number one, hard to find with winemakers, I'll be honest with you. And it's like, I think vineyard managers and winemakers sometimes have a little bit of difference of opinions with stuff, but as far as the, and that's good too, right? I think there's, good to have different points of view, but as far as the vines.
Well, wait, let me clarify. Sarah, are you the winemaker?
I am the winemaker, yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Okay.
I don't know. I always say that Reed's making the wine 6 months of the year, and I'm making it 2 months of the year.
Yes.
So.
And what do we your fermentation?
Oh, I'm a fermentation guidance counselor.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So I'm a chlorophyll manager, and that's what Sarah is.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I love that.
But to dive into that a little bit, it's it's exactly that where a lot of things that we deal with, or that maybe I'll just talk about myself, that I deal with, there's a lot of fear, right? There's a lot of fear in my heart of, I've got a little girl too, right? Am I doing a good job? Am I helping her out? She's only 2 months old, so I can't really mess up that much, right? But it's the same thing.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It's the same thing though, with the vines where, it's really out of my control, right? I can't quite, dictate what I want the weather to be. Sure, here in Eastern Washington, I got to say, out of everywhere I've practiced viticulture, by far the easiest, right? You're just worried about abiotic factors. It's dry and it's hot, right?
Yeah.
But we have ample amount of water, and the vines absolutely love this type of environment. So that when I say I'm kind of a little bit hands off of it, I'm actually super hands on, but I'm trying to be hands off in a way where in more how I look at things with the crew, or how I look at things with what's the footprint I'm leaving here, right? How many passes have we done in that tractor? Was that necessary? And so it's kind of having faith in that the vines know more than I know. The vines know what to do. They're super efficient. They don't waste time. It's not like humans where we'll like waste money on this, or we'll just sit down and watch a movie for no good reason, right? They're like vines. Everything they do has a purpose. Everything they do. And even if to me as someone who's managing these vines, maybe what they're doing is frustrating me. Wow, look at how many suckers they're pushing out. Or this year is such a weedy year because we had such a wet kind of spring. It's like all of that is really adding up to the vintage, right? And to be able to have this vintage 2025 and have it be specific, right? When you're going to taste Hedges 2025 wine, whatever that might be, you're going to taste this year. And that's really what excited me to come on board with Sarah, is because of that notion of, we're not going to doctor this. I'm not going to be out in the vineyard doing all these things to make it so she gets the same product every single year. That's super boring and super inauthentic, right? It's like this year was maybe like we had a lot of insects, but we were pretty low with mildew, right? So that's going to affect certain things on my end that will affect certain things on Sarah's end, right? But to take the ego out and to say, hey, like, an insect is an insect, but like the vine doesn't know. The vine doesn't know if like this insect, this cutworm, is eating the bud, or if I'm essentially the worst pest of them all and taking all the grapes off, right? So I have to be reasonable with what I'm calling pests, right? I have to be reasonable with these fears I have of, is the canopy going to be able to withstand this? Are we going to get enough? Is photosynthesis going to be working the way I want it to? All these things are kind of coursing through my mind, but I also have to know, like, these vines they've done this for 40 years before me, and they're going to do it for 40 years after me. I just have to try to find a way to help them feel better, to help them have a little bit better nutrients, to help the soil just a little bit more. All this is just small changes. I kind of look at it similar to a huge boat, right? If you're in a big boat, you're not going to try to turn that boat as quick as you can. It's not going to go well. You got to do a nice slow turn. But in order to do that slow turn, you need to know where you're going, right? You can't just be reactive. And a lot of farming these days, and maybe winemaking, which I can't talk too much about because I'm not a winemaker, is super reactive, right? This is happening, so I need to do this, or I need to do this to avoid that, and that type of decision tree. I think it might help you in the moment, but as I've seen agriculture and vineyards now for many years, I can see that those decisions never help you down the road, right? And vineyards are the ultimate religion to me, because they'll tell you when you're wrong and they'll tell you when you're right. There's no forgiveness, right? And so you have to be forgiving it with yourself when you're making these decisions, because at the end of the day, we're just humans making decisions, trying to create a beverage for other humans to enjoy. And it's really that simple.
Yeah. Sarah, do you find it that you need to get out into the vineyard much? I mean, do you like to get out in the vineyard much? I mean, I'm sure you like to, but like,
I love it. So Reed and I get out there weekly, and usually we have time to walk each block. Sometimes it's like, yeah, let's just drive around and pop out and in, but life happens, especially during bottling season and traveling season. And, but yeah, no, I love getting out there. But I'm not one of those winemakers that's going to try and do the vineyard manager's job for him. I think that each part of winemaking has certain people that have their strengths, and we try to hire the best vineyard managers possible to be that strength out in the field for that amount of time. And then once I get the grapes in, I've got a good quality product to work with. And I definitely won't hold back if I see something I don't like, But as far as like letting him know ahead of time, like this is what I'm looking for. This block is typically like this. I like this Syrah for these reasons. And then he understands the vines enough to kind of help them along to coax those characteristics out of it. So, but the better ingredients I get, the better Hedges wine is, because when it comes into the winery, I've got way less tools than what we had for those 6 months out in the field. So that's a big deal to me to get out there, taste. I mean, we're already tasting and it's barely brazen, and then I've got a raw mouth from tasting all the tart acidic stuff out there.
I'm super impressed. I was like, all right, Sarah, go for it.
But I love it. We had a biodynamic consultant when we first started, and he would go out there and just eat all of the like super just hard green berries. I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah, he was interesting. And I'm like, what are you getting from this? And he had this long explanation and his heavy French accent. I was like, whatever, man. I don't
just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. No, it's important to be out there, and I think nature, like we're part of nature, and I think when the vines feel that good human energy, I know that sounds a little woo-woo, but I think all energy is around us, and the more good energy we can create in the things that we're trying to do is a positive.
I mean, it's undeniable that we all are just energy, in different forms. So it's, I mean, like, but there's also the old, the best fertilizer is the farmer's footsteps thing.
Yeah. And that's, especially with biodynamic growing and winemaking, your best tool is your eyesight, your senses, really. So it is like, very hands off in the cellar because we're native, doing native ferments and stuff, but I'm probably tasting more often and, just checking on the ferments more often, because that's my only line of defense that I have to see when stuff goes awry.
And you guys are in an area known for what I would say would be like concentration. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like sort of deep, rich, concentrated reds is a big part of that area.
Yep.
Stylistically, when you think of better, like the vines giving you better materials or making better wine, what is that? Like stylistically, what is your ideal that you're going for in your wine?
So, I want to see balance for sure. And I think balance out here is definitely different from like balance in the south of France where I worked, or balance down in Santa Barbara County or Sonoma. We do get higher sugars here. We do get higher pHs here. But because we're a little farther north, we get this cool diurnal shift happening during maturation. So sometimes our day to nighttime temps are 40 degrees. So you really retain acidity here, even with some of those higher pHs. And I think that works in our favor, because I don't want to try to take away what Red Mountain is, which is color and tannin and power and like off the wall aromatics and flavors. Like I think some of the best Merlots I've ever had have come from Red Mountain. They're so concentrated, but they also have that like, super interesting Merlot effect that Cabernet just doesn't quite get. And I find it so sad that Merlot is not as popular as it is, especially from Washington, especially from Red Mountain, because it's very dynamic and it's got structure. And it's like I've messed up Washington Merlot for Napa Cab. And I'm not afraid to say that. I'm very humble about that. Because it is so dynamic and structured like that. But
I have preferred a Washington Cab over many Napa cabs.
Yeah, I mean, I think every region has its thing, but I think that goes along with doctoring too. Like if you've got too many people in one region trying to get the same characteristics out of their wine, that region becomes homogenized and is very boring. And I think Washington State, especially when Hedges planted in the early 90s, we were all just kind of the Wild West out here. And to an extent, we still are. But there were very different wines coming out of each vineyard. And it was really cool to see before technology took over and scores took over. And so Hedges, as far as their style is, we haven't changed. Like, we're still harvesting the grapes, and we used to make wine conventionally, but I say conventional light because we added a package of yeast and adjusted acid, and that was it.
Yeah.
Now, instead of adding a package of yeast and adjusting acid, we're doing native ferments, and I'm doing a bunch of early picks to offset sort of the high pH of the late picks, and those get blended together as like a natural acid addition. So we haven't really changed too much.
Wow.
It's like I want people to know Red Mountain for its tannin. I want people to know Red Mountain for its color. And as a winemaker, I always get the final decision on what that style is. And my dad, who's a little bit older, is like, "Oh, tannins are too rough. They're too rough." And I go, "But that's our region. Like, no one would ever say like this Barolo is too big, right?" So I want Red Mountain to feel like that to people. And I've had wines made by other people from our fruit that I can't even recognize. Wow. And I think that's a shame.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to the chlorophyll manager thing. I mean, I first, well, since we're on winemaking, I know we're doing this kind of backwards. Nice to start in the vineyard and then move into the cellar, but like, maybe this is, I mean, honestly, this was my journey in wine, was like, you fall in love with wine and then you're like, how do I make it? And then you're like, and then you make a whole bunch of wine and it's like, okay. And you're like, what can I do to make better wine? You're like, and then somebody's like, well, the grapes have to be good. And then you're like, well, what does it take to make good grapes? Yeah. And then, 10 years later, here you are. You're like, you've gone down the rabbit hole and you're
no getting out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. But so you're essentially like probably just adding sulfites and that's about it. So that's otherwise just like
we add sulfites, and of course, as little as possible. It is funny. I mean, it's not funny. Our pHs are high, so like our molecular SO2 is not even hitting the point of controlling
right
things like that. So I'm adding SO2 up front for oxidative issues, and after that, once the wines are dry and they're clean, I'm not really adding much after that, because sure, maybe I sleep better at night if we add a little bit, but I know in my heart it's not doing anything, because that pH of our wines is higher. We're in a hot climate. And so yeah, that I do add a little bit of organic yeast nutrition during fermentation, and we've got some Venturi aerators for oxygen, and that's about it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, just curious. I mean, I just, again, like to me, the vineyard, stuff is like significantly more something that I like care deeply about, and the cellar stuff is just like I'm very curious about everybody's process,
Yeah. And I do, people are always like, how do you have such healthy native ferments in a high pH area in an old cellar? And I do starter buckets. So I do my pied de cuve out in the field. I'll do probably 4 or 5 different blocks. I'll go out and pick 5-gallon buckets in those blocks. I'll cover them with a towel. I'll let them sit in the vineyard, and it's sort of like Russian roulette a little bit. Like, okay, so which bucket is the best, and which one are we gonna pull the trigger on? And so yeah, some blocks, some years I get these super healthy bucket ferments, and that becomes the starter. Other years I, lift the towel and there's like a bunch of mold on top. I'm like, well, not using that one. So yeah, I get one good starter bucket, and that's what kicks off our first tank. And then from there, we'll draw off tanks, create starter buckets for each tank that comes in from that kind of like mother tank. And then I'll keep feeding that starter fresh juice throughout harvest. And that's kind of how we have good, healthy ferments. I don't let anything just go like super wild, because our cellar's pretty big and there's a lot going on. And I just want to make sure we kickstart those ferments right away with a good, healthy starter.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that's from I make sourdough bread for years, so that whole starter situation just made a lot of sense to me. Like, yeah, why not start with this healthy starter and create some good stuff from it?
Yeah, no, this has been. I mean, I'm fully a disciple of that practice or whatever. I'm a true believer in the pied de couve because I mean I've now tasted it multiple times and I just have seen, it's just like the way to ensure like a beautiful fermentation without having to inoculate and all that kind of stuff.
So Reed's an ex-professional soccer player, by the way.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah. There's a lot of that going on. Yeah, I was able to play in Costa Rica, and Spain, and Iceland, Italy, and the bulk of my career was in Costa Rica, and that was where I essentially learned how to speak Spanish, and then learning Spanish there, and then going to Spain, like they had no idea what the hell I was saying, and then going from Spain to Mandavi, where the majority were speaking Spanish. That was another where no one knew what I was saying. So now my Spanish is good enough where I can speak in Costa Rica, in Spain, and in Mexico, and I think I'll get by all right. But that was nice. That was a pretty great experience, and really it just taught me. When you're doing things in life, you kind of think this isn't gonna, like I'll do this and this isn't really gonna help me with anything else, kind of, right? I mean, soccer's pretty specific; it's a specific sport, and as I was playing, I thought maybe I'll be a coach or maybe I'll be a trainer. And afterwards, I was just completely done with it. Right, I had a bunch of kind of surgeries; it just really beat me up. But really, what I draw a lot back on those experiences now, because it really taught me how to look at a team, and really that's what we are, right? That's what we're doing here at Hedges, is we're a team, and I appreciate that. We have our coaches and we have our players, and then within that we have people that do specific things, just like you would on a soccer field. And so it really kind of helped me zone in to know who to put where and why am I putting them there. And then also just to kind of really, my philosophy as a vineyard manager is I want everybody to be a vineyard manager. I want everybody to be a leader, because then we're all going to make the right decisions, right? But in order to do that, you need to have respect. And so going back to the chlorophyll manager, it's it's kind of an endearing term, but it's how I view that is chlorophyll is, to me, it's like super, I don't know, it's how plants evolved to have chlorophyll and to create food from the sun. It's like, what the hell? You know what I mean? That's like wild to me. And
it's
so
magic.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And then to see that, like, we're really, to boil us down to like DNA, we're really not that much different from plants. You know what I mean? And so it's I view them as part of my team as well, and how I manage them is kind of in that in itself, where I'm just kind of trying to feel what are they feeling in that day, right? So a lot of my time is literally just spent, I'm just pacing the vineyard, just back and forth, going down each row. I mean, I literally have watched weeds grown in the day. You know what I mean? That's like what I'm doing, is just out there feeling the vines. And then from there, trying to feel how the crew is too. And then how am I feeling, right? Because it's and then I have to kind of mold those three things together in the sense of like, hey, these vines are telling me these things, right? And what that might be is, hey, I've got too much vigor, Reed, or hey, I need a little bit of nutrients, or hey, this pruning wasn't done right, and that's why I'm not growing the way that I feel like I could be growing, right? And so then I take my crew, and I never give them instructions. I literally just talk to them and say, like, what do you think we should do here, and why do you think we should do it? And then just try to guide that decision-making process so that it's more of a feel, right? It's like I want us to leave a block, whatever task that might be, and I go into that block afterwards. I want to feel how are the vines responding, right? Everything in life has a response, right? It might be neutral, it might be positive, it might be negative. And what I'm trying to do is feel what we did and what that response is, right? And then tailor that to that year, right? Because something that I did this year might be perfect for this year, but if I were to do it at the exact same time, at the exact same date next year, it might be the worst decision I've ever made, right, in the vineyard. And so you really have to look at it as almost like kind kind of like infantile, like a little bit like a child, right? Where you kind of have to erase everything that you think you know. And that's a big thing too that I really didn't understand in the industry, and I guess I should have. But like everybody's got a freaking opinion, right? Everyone thinks, hey, this is how you grow vines, or this is what it should be, or this is what it shouldn't be, or this is what sustainable means, or this is what organic means, or this is right. All these opinions, and with organic and biodynamic, Demeter and CCOF, they've got their standards, and sure, that's easy to follow, but that in itself sometimes can get you tangled up, right? Sometimes too many rules will especially in safety, sometimes kind of can create some unsafe situations. And it's the same thing with people's opinions, with some of these certifying bodies, right? Of this is what you can do, this is the only thing, and this is the only way you can do that. I'm really a strong believer in not believing in that, right? It's like I think whenever you feel like you've got one answer, that's a sign that there's probably way more answers out there. Just like when you think you only have one decision, I need to make this one decision, and I'm talking about with vines. In most circumstances, you've painted yourself in a corner where you feel like that is the only decision to make, right? So knowing when and how to pivot, especially in an organic situation, a biodynamic operation, you just don't have that one silver bullet. And I thank God that we don't, right? I respect people that grow conventionally, but I also see that it turns your brain off, right? It's like, okay, I've got powdery mildew, so I'm going to spray Quintec, and that's going to solve it, and I can go to bed, and everything's fine. Well, not really anymore, right? Quintec's a really old chemistry, and now we're having some resistance to that, and so more and more, especially when I started, 10 years ago in the industry over in Napa, people were coming out and saying like, hey guys, there's no more silver bullet, right? Roundup is not going to work anymore. These fungicides we're using, they're going to be resistant, right? And like I was kind of baffled. I was like, wow, where's the industry going to go if we're having these huge, what I would call like super insects or super fungi that's attacking us? We have to like look at that and say, well, number one, me, the human, like mankind created that. So that means that all the thought processes that we are thinking now of how to manage property and land and what it is to be sustainable, even or organic, we're maybe a little off, because look where we are, right? We've made these decisions, and now we've created some pretty gnarly pests. And so we need to stop thinking in the same way, right? And that's like there's like kind of an old adage, like humans are like our minds are like dogs, where we kind of go to the same area each time, right? We keep doing the same thing each time, and we really need to kind of have some self-reflecting on that. And it's super hard, right? It's just like kind of going back to parenting. It's like you could be a style of parent that you want to be, but then when it comes down to a stressful situation, or you're super anxious or whatever, and then you respond and react in a way that maybe your parents did, that or someone that parented you that you didn't like, and you're like, wait a second, why did I do that, or why am I saying that? That's not who I am. But it's because to the core, when you have anxiety, when you have fear, you're going to make these decisions that are never going to help, right? That they might solve it in that moment, right? You might get really upset at your child in that moment, and they might stop what they're doing. But what's the repercussion? How is that child going to feel in the future when a situation happens like this, right? And what are they going to be thinking about themselves? And it's the same thing with the vines, right? How are the vines feeling, right? They've got a problem, and maybe these insects are attacking these vines in just this one particular spot. Maybe because not just because insects like vines, but maybe these vines, there's something going on with these vines. Maybe I need to help the immune system of these vines so that they're ready for the next attack, right? Because that's all life is kind of things attacking us like blocks in the way. And whenever you want something, there's going to be always more blocks in the way. So it's trying to find a way to live in a society and to manage a vineyard where, yes, we need that production, but also we need to look at this as quality. And I think quantity and quality are two things that are really, really hard to go together, right? Unless you can look at it in a way where you can kind of categorize and make decisions that can kind of help you get there. But regardless, wanting and trying to achieve something is always going to be challenging. Every vineyard manager wants to have the biggest crop and the best quality. They always want that, right? But how do we flip that on its head, right? And I think that the industry is kind of showing us that, where people are wanting to try different things. People are wanting to know, like, why am I drinking this wine? Like, what's even the point of this, right? And that's where I go back to Hedges and the vintage of like people like my story is try this wine because you get to taste this year. You get to feel the stress and the strain and the successes and the failures of what we've done all together in the winery and also in the vineyard. And that's pretty exciting, really exciting.
Yeah, the quote I thought you were going to say was it's something I'm paraphrasing, but it's like we can't solve the problems using the same mentality that got us into the problems.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly kind of what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, and just going back to how you sort of started what you were just saying, yeah, I mean, more and more, like, I mean, for a long time, I was looking to learn the right approach or the right way or the, solution to this problem or that problem. And then, you amass all this knowledge and you think you know something, and then you start, working with farmers who are doing a really good job, and you realize like they're just paying attention, like they're really just, they're observing and they're like learning from what's happening. And they, of course they have some knowledge and they're trying, but like there's like a flexibility and it depends kind of mentality and an individual attention thing. Like it's like you don't just think of a recipe, you're like looking at individual, you're looking at a dynamic system that could be by block, it could be by row, it could be by a section, or it could be down to the individual vine, and they don't all need the exact same thing, even within the same variety in the same row. And it's like, unless you're paying attention to that, unless you start thinking about that, you're going to not be optimizing for each of those unique circumstances. Yeah, that's been a big thing. Like it's kind of like comforting in some ways too, because you're like, yeah, my specific farm is unique, and I have to just learn it. Like it's, I just have to learn my farm. It's like, yeah, I can bring all this other stuff to it, but like ultimately I've got to learn the farm, and it will, it's going to be the guide to whatever I need to do. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful sentiment.
Exactly.
Well said.
And I feel like you're on that, talking earlier about your journey and what you're doing, Adam, and that's very exciting to me, right? Where it's like you get to kind of be an observer, and it's like, and that's the thing too. Like I could come to your land and I could observe in a different way and farm in a different way, but that's kind of part of the fun, right? It's like that's what I feel is organic. That's what I feel is biodynamic. It's like it's the farmer involved in it as well, right? Where it's like it's your opinion and it's what you're trying to achieve, and whatever those goals might be, that's what you're setting things up to, and that's what you're gearing towards. And it's, I'll be honest, it's challenging because everything's got to make money, right? You got to make money off of whatever you're doing, or else how do you keep it going, right? So that's a little bit of the challenge of like, hey, a lot of these philosophical thoughts that we're talking about and feeling, it's like that's great and all, but at the end of the day, will I produce enough grapes so that Sarah can make enough wine so that we can sell enough bottles of wine, right? That kind of is still part of the equation, but
idealism does not sign the paychecks.
Exactly. Right. But it's like, if we can look at that in a way and channel that for our favor, right? And then also, I think that, like greed is another huge thing too with humans, where we always want more, and it's never quite enough. There's never enough of whatever it might be. And so it's like, here at Hedges, we're really rethinking, what is our brand? Where are we going? Why are we going there? And I do believe that the answer to some of those questions require sacrifice, require struggle, and require dialing it back a little bit so we know where to go. Because it's just, a lot of the industry has just been like at 100 miles an hour, just go, 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 bulk wine, just get as many grapes as you can, farm it, and just tear it out and go again. That's been the mantra. And I'm hoping, and I think we're seeing a trend where people are seeing, hey, like, number one, this is like super labor intensive and not fun, right? Number two, it's like, what's the point of this, right? I mean, I really believe in legacy. I really believe in what's remembered after we're gone. And that's not just with humans, that's with plants and animals and everything, the ecology, everything around me. I want them the land to remember me in a way where it's almost like forgotten me, right? Where it's like you could look at this land and say, wow, this is the way it was supposed to be. And that's kind of the lore and the I guess that light that at the end of the tunnel that I believe Sarah and I are chasing. And in the meantime, let's make some badass wines, right? Let's do that at the same time. But there's got to be some fun in it, right? A lot of there's a lot of stress to what we're doing, but there's a lot of reward, right? Especially here at Red Mountain. Sometimes I'm in those vines, and it's at the end of the day, and it literally feels like I'm. I don't know if you've ever kind of gone into the ocean and just kind of laid on the ocean floor and looked up and just kind of seen the waves kind of moving, the water moving above you. That's really what it feels like for me to be out there, right? And I'm sure Sarah feels like that too when she's out there, when she's creating in her own way too, right? So to be able to work together on this, what it feels like to be a project, each year is its own project, pretty exciting, right? And that in itself is the reward to work together, not just with Sarah, but with Hedges as well, and the people that work here for that end goal, right? But to get everybody on the ship to believe in that's the hard part, right? Because we all need to pay that rent. Rent doesn't care. We all got to pay the gas. That doesn't matter, right? So we got to, we still have to pay the bills, so to speak, but can we do it in a way where it feels like more than just us coming to work and just clocking in and clocking out, right? And so for Sarah and I, it kind of creates where we work tremendous hours because it's super like immersive, right? We're really, really into it, and the wines don't take a break. The vineyards don't take a break, so it almost seems unreasonable and unfair for us to take a break. I won't speak for you, Sarah, but that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Well, we joke around here. It's not really a joke, but we say it's a lifestyle. It's not a job. Yeah. I mean, if you are truly into what wine represents, you are enamored with it and you never get it out of your brain. So it's like history and culture and like you just think about the thousands of years of people that have done this. And I'm reading a book listening to a book right now, talking about.
I do that too.
Yeah, I know. Wait a minute, I'm listening to it. But the immortality key about how ancient civilizations were using psychedelics, wine, beer as sort of this transcendent way to look at the world. And he talks about how ancient these beverages are. And, I always knew like, okay, yeah, so Georgia, winemaking goes back thousands of years to like 4,000 BC to 7,000 BC, which is wild. It's crazy. And how now they're discovering that the reason the agricultural revolution started was because of beer, not bread. And beer was actually the first thing that got people into planting and agriculture. And they're seeing these remnants of beer, which is this calcium oxalate, in vessels that predate bread by like 1,000 years. It's pretty wild. So you think about all that history and that you're like the now and the future of it, and so many generations before you. And it's really cool to think about this beverage in this industry. I think we need to get that across more of like how much this actually means. It's not something you just buy at the store and some bulk wine got shipped somewhere mixed with other bulk wine and then it got bottled at a different facility and slap a label on it and like the shareholders make money and great. That to me is not wine. That's a great beverage, but it's not wine. I think wine it has a different sense to it, a different emotion to it, and I really hope that where the industry is going, we get back to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think what I hear you saying is how important the context is, which, again, going back to like, we're not going to solve this problem by using the same thinking. And I think the thinking that we've been using that has decontextualized wine are like point scores and like judging panel, and everything is about like we determine quality by just a glass of wine. We don't look beyond that, and that's horrible. Like, frankly, like, you can't just taste a glass of wine and be like, oh, this is a great wine or this is a bad wine. It's like, how was it farmed? Like, how were the workers treated that grew the grapes? Like, how, what went into that? Like, there's like a whole community behind that of, humans and non-humans, and like, how were they treated? How, like, did they live beautiful lives because this wine was made? Like, that's the story that we need to be focusing on, not, oh, it's got like these fruits and this tannic profile, and you know what I mean? It's like, who gives a shit? Like, honestly, it's like,
let's stop with the X-raying of the wine.
Oh God. I mean, especially when, like, we all I'm looking, what's the word? Like, we all sort of get excited about different flavors. I guess the word, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, we all sort of ignite based on different things. So it's like, why, like, let people get ignited by whatever ignites them, and leave that alone and focus on the context, because then that will quickly separate a lot of wines out as just like, oh yeah, why am I drinking this? This is just an industrial, like, this is a wine beverage made in an industrial factory style farming system. Like, I don't want that. Like, there's nothing interesting and exciting about that. Like, people were probably exploited, the land was extracted from and exploited. Like, what do we care? Like, why do I want to support that? Like, great, 99 points, like, on what scale? On, like, just what happened in the glass? Like, how important is that? It's not.
You bring up a really good point. Like, maybe we should add in factors to the scoring system that judge people based on their farming practices and winemaking practices, and then the result in the glass. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
I tried to do like a sort of satire of that. I mean, it wasn't exactly a satire. I meant it seriously, but then I realized it was sort of satiric because I created the ecological wine score. Like, there's I think the website is still up. We can really look at it, but the point was, like, it was like taste was like 10% of the score that you could get. But then, like, the sort of satiric part was like the list of materials that I need from you in order to judge your wine. And it was like your whole, payroll and benefits for all your employees. Like, and I was just like, nobody's ever going to submit for this wine score. But if they did, like, or even if they didn't, it gets the point across of like, this is what you need to look at.
Yeah. I mean, we're one of the only wineries or vineyards that offers 401k sharing for vineyard workers and vacation time for vineyard workers. We pay some of the top cents per pound for picking. And a lot of people actually don't know that is in the Demeter Farm standard. They do have that. Employee treatment is a big part of that.
That's right. Yeah, it's good. I'm really glad you brought that up because people focus on so many other things about biodynamic, and that's actually like a really beautiful thing for that day. I mean, it's like really, really positive part of it, rather than just cow horns, or whatever.
Cow horns and preps.
Right, cow horns and preps. Yeah. It's there's some really good stuff about that. I mean, and I mean, the words that were coming to my head as you were talking, Reed, were like, just playing and dancing, instead of thinking of it as work or thinking of it as obligation. But like, when you can get into that state where it's play or it's dance, it's like a dance. It's like a, you're like, yes, there's like things you have to learn. There's a rhythm you have to follow. But like, once you get into the flow state with it, then it's this beautiful, fun activity that like is seductive and exciting and enlivening. And farming, I really think farming can be like that.
Yeah. I think it's been, I really do believe that farming is kind of one of the worst things that has happened to mankind. And I think that,
are we going back to hunting gathering?
Yeah, if we can do that, I'd be totally game.
Wait, you don't want to be game. Trust me, in a hunter gatherer society, you don't want to be the game.
That's right. And so it's really, for me, a kind of a little. There is a rhythm to it, right? And for sure, it's like it is super stressful, right? Farming organically is like super hard, right? Because you kind of have these issues and these things that you have to deal with. They could be chronic, or they could just be for like kind of this year, but you still need to address them. And I think it's very easy to say, hey, I'm an organic farmer, I'm a biodynamic farmer, and we just don't have the tools for that. So yep, we just gotta let it be the way it is, and I understand that because I myself have just hit many walls. Whether an example of that would be like compost, right? Like compost is a huge part of the farm standard that Demeter has created, that you need to have compost, you need to have a compost program. And when I was farming in Southern Oregon for Troon Vineyards, was one of our clients, which I totally looked them up. They're awesome. And
I've interviewed multiple people from Troon.
Oh, right on. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Some really great conversations.
With it really is. Folks. I totally suggest to visit it and check it out. They're really on it there, but they just have a very loving team, right? And they also understand kind of this dance that we're talking about. And but to have a compost program there felt a little bit easier because we had an organic dairy farm, like 10 miles down the road, right? So we could get that manure over, and we could kind of start our own compost pretty easily, right? Obviously it did take work, and you need to have people to manage the compost, but we had it, we can create it. In Eastern Washington, I've gotten, kind of a dead phone call after dead phone call, or farmer after farmer that just does not want to tell me, or answer the questions I'm asking, right? What do you do when your cows are sick? What do you feed your cows? Where do you house them? They're not wanting to answer these questions because it's not exactly in the same standards that I'm looking for. And that's nothing against them. I understand why they're having to farm in that way, but that's been super challenging for me, right? So I've kind of had to rethink that. And my rethought was, hey, like, I want to put down 5 tons an acre, right, for compost. We got 110 acres. That's a lot of tonnage. I can maybe get 50 tons, or I can get 20 tons or 10 tons of compost that I can create, and then I can create compost tea from that, right? And then so I can really limit the amount of compost that I need, but it goes way farther than what it would be just to try to put on as many tons as I can, and then maybe changing my source from organic cows to maybe organic worms, right? And seeing if I can kind of create a compost or a vermicompost from that, right? And then we're also going to be developing a mushroom garden here, so the type of fungi waste that I'm going to be getting from that, I can reincorporate that back into my own kind of starter for my own compost pile, and then put that right back in the drip, and I can kind of fertigate that in, and that will also help too, right? So it's again going back to like, hey, that is a huge problem, and that super sucks that like I can't get the type of compost that I want, but maybe this workaround will get me even further than it would have with my first idea. So it's just it's being nimble is really crucial. And I really thank my, maybe not going to school and not having these degrees, because I don't have anything set in my mind already, right? Everything that I'm doing is kind of me learning it at the same time. And that really creates, I believe, better decisions, because I don't have something in my mind saying, nope, that we need to have calcium at this rate, so I need to do these things for that, or I need to have this type of organic matter in my soil, or it's literally going back to, what's the land telling me? What are the vines telling me? And sure, my soil report might say, hey, we got low organic matter, but like, what are my vines telling me, right? And if they're happy and healthy, and Sarah's getting great fruit from those vines, why am I trying to change something and to go through a bunch of work with something that might not need to be changed, right? So it's really trying to understand, what are the actual problems, what's actually affecting us, and kind of how do I pinpoint those? And then also, how do I come up with 5 or 10 different answers for that one? Because I'm always going to assume the thing that I think might be the answer for that, probably not going to be able to do it.
Well, and I think like one of my favorite quotes is, go back to the beginning to understand the end.
Yeah.
And Red Mountain became famous for a reason. We had zero organic matter in our soil and no water. So you look at like the concentration, the tannins, the flavors. I mean, our anthocyanins are off the charts. Like you're just working with this impressive material. And as we've added more water to the AVA, like we used to all be on wells and we'd pump the aquifer dry and it's like, oh crap, it's the middle of August, we have no water. And so you really had to deficit irrigate. And that created super concentrated berries, really concentrated wines. And that is why Red Mountain is known as the best AVA in the state. And what I'm seeing going forward is now we have irrigation district water. And so we can apply almost as much water as we want to now. And, Reed coming in, I'm kind of like, well, let's kind of like think about history and why this is famous. Like, let's go back to deficit irrigation. Let's go back to a little bit of shatter. Let's go back to what we had in the beginning, which is why we were farming here and what made our wines so amazing. Because we don't want to be like Columbia Valley with a ton of water. We don't want to be like, and not to say like I make Columbia Valley wines and they're great, but they don't have that unique Red Mountain signature. And so if you look at what the AVA has provided us, we get our certifications done every year, our audits done, and they're like, well, there's no worms in your soil. There's no organic matter. I'm like,
I was going to say, it sounds like it hasn't provided much for you.
We didn't have this to begin with. So why would we alter the soil that gave us such great wine to begin with?
Totally.
So that to me, for being here for as long as I have, is really important to keep that terroir. Like I don't want to alter it to the point to where we're just like every other region.
Yep. It's being authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
so,
I think that shows through the wines.
It sounds like your vine vigor is probably lower. Is that true?
No, actually, we've got super. Yeah, it's like ridiculous, and that's the thing.
It's so weird.
It really is. Yeah, it's. I really think that the vines here. So we've got in some circumstances like 40-year-old, 35-year-old vines. So it's really, really. We
have a lot of sunshine.
Yeah.
A lot of sunshine. So you literally have like 2 drops of water and like things go crazy.
And you're groovy. Yeah, the type of growing degree days we have here is kind of ridiculous. And it's just sunny day after sunny day.
Yeah, because you guys are really far north, but also with a really I think you're the furthest north hot Mediterranean summer climate.
So 6 inches of rain a year, and most of that is in the winter, and 300 days of sunshine.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And so it's like, so with that, sure, we do have, we've got different soil series, but it's mostly just like super sandy. I used to live in Florida for a minute. And so sometimes when I'm driving around, it's like weird where it's like, holy crap, like it looks like we're like by the beach, you know what I'm saying? It's just literally straight sand. And so because of that, we have super high control over irrigation, right? So I kind of look at irrigation and fertilizer as kind of like gas and brakes a little bit. And so as soon as you apply that water, immediately you see that vine responding. And as soon as you stop that water, dry as a bone, right? And so it's we really can control the vines in a way where we can kind of get them under a certain type of stress where we're still getting all of those characteristics we want from Red Mountain, but we're not like we're not drying them out where we're like just a bunch of shrivel, like we're kind of screwing ourselves in some ways. And maybe in the earlier time, like Sarah was talking about, when they just had water from like a pump, I'm sure they might have had some of those situations. I'm not sure, but
and all the leaves fall off our Syrah block in August.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
but they grew
That's
back.
how you know it's ready.
I love that. That's wild.
When the leaves fall off, it's time to pick.
Yeah. That's go time. So it definitely is interesting managing a vineyard that has that history, right? Like these vineyards here have seen like the evolution of technology. They've seen the evolution of Red Mountain. And so now where I see them, it's they do need some help, right? We need to get kind of the sap flow and the type of pruning to a little bit better degree. I think we have a lot of just like kind of some rot within these vines too, but that's also creating these types of characteristics that I think are great too. And also vines are incredible, right? Like, I remember working at Mondavi, and we had eye block over there. It was Sauvignon Blanc, and it was about over 90 years old, and head trained vines, and you could stick your whole hand through the trunk of those vines, but there was just a little sliver of green, all from the roots all the way up to the canopy, that were still allowing these vines to produce fruit. And that's where I kind of realized, like, wait a second, like we don't need to baby these things. You know what I mean? Like these vines they really do have their own personality. And it's really tough to kill a grapevine, right? You can, but to the to conventional farmers, that's kind of what they're doing, and it's a long death process. And that's why UC Davis kind of preaches 25 to 30 years is kind of the lifespan of a vineyard, and that to me needs to completely be thrown out, right? I could not disagree more. And it's really in the way that you're farming and treating those vines, where sure, if you are putting them on that VSP, if you're making really harsh kind of pruning decisions, if you're not thinking through your fertilizer, you wouldn't believe how many people I consult with, and I go to their vineyards and I say, hey, well, I can see what's going on here. When's the last time you fertilized? They say, oh, well, we've never fertilized. Well, I mean, it's simply what we're the type of nitrogen or the type of potassium, the type of everything that we're taking off these vines and harvest. Even pruning, right? We're cutting all that off. Sure, you could be chopping that, the pruning cuttings up, but if you're not incorporating that and tilling that in the ground, you're just losing that in the air, right? This is the sun's just kind of burning up all of those nutrients, even in the cuttings, right? So I really believe that having the right type of nutrient program, and I don't say fertilizer program, I say nutrient program, is crucial. And the keystone, the most important part of that nutrient program has got to be the microbes, has got to be the protozoa. And if you're not focusing on those, I mean, we don't even know half of the stuff that they can do, right? And those right there, those little bugs, as I call them, those are the bridge between the nutrients and unlocking the nutrients and getting that nutrients to the roots. And if we're just putting nitrogen on, that's great. But if we don't have the right microbial life in that soil, we're just going to be leaching that out. We're just wasting our time. We're just wasting our money, right? So it's got to be we have to really think. I believe soil first has got to be the primary focus, and from there you could really build up and do really whatever you want with the vineyard. But how can you do anything with a vine where it's not in the right environment? It doesn't have the right nutrients. You're just kind of wasting your time.
Yeah, I kind of spoke about past a little bit, but we're also thinking about the future. And, we're definitely seeing more erratic temperature in our neck of the woods, more heat dome.
Yeah. Were you guys impacted by that freeze that the Okanagan had?
Yes. Yeah, we actually fared okay. I mean, we're on a pretty good slope with our vineyards, so we had a lot of cold drainage, but we did have some bud damage. We still were able to harvest a fairly normal sized crop the next year. But yeah, nothing like they saw in Okanagan, but we definitely got hit pretty hard. I mean, our well pump busted.
Yeah, so trying to because you were doing overhead spraying. A
block of ice, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so our well supplies water to the winery, and we had this one little part of the pipe that wasn't insulated. So this, pump I was trying to pump against ice, and it was a mess. But yeah, we were, and usually we get cold. But what we saw was, and usually that cold only happens for 2 or 3 hours in the very early morning. But we were like lows of 2 or 3 and highs of 7. So we were just like in that single digit range for 4 days. And that's what really, really causes that to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're cold winters. And then in 2021, we had this huge heat dome during cab set. So we were 118 degrees right when cab was trying to set. And, I'm used to 102, 103. but like
fruit set.
Yep. Yeah. So
like during fruit set, that's early for that kind of heat, right?
Yeah, it was pretty early. That was end of June.
Wow.
And that was intense, and it lasted.
That's
for
brutal.
days. Yeah, so we lost about half our cab crop that year. It kind of sucked. The cabs were super concentrated. We had extra small berries. The wines are great, but not enough to really sustain. I mean, I think our average tons per acre was around 1.5 tons per acre, which is pretty low. Usually
Wow.
we're around 3.5 to 4. So yeah, and so we're starting to see different varietals, which we've had on the property since '97. So we've got some head trained Touriga, Tintacow, Sisal. Our head trained Syrah fares really well. So these head trained varieties, especially the Portuguese ones, and the Touriga especially, has really shined through all these inconsistencies. And so we're looking at future wise, like what are we maybe going to replace some of the Merlot with, some of the Cab with, and really create a farm that's able to withstand a lot of these different temperature fluctuations. And Reed was talking about VSP a little earlier, like what farming style really is the best for our area. And we're seeing with some varieties that head train really is producing some stellar fruit.
I mean, I think we were talking about this before, but like I know there are some advantages to head train, but a Watson trellis, I mean, one of the great advantages to head train is you don't need a big trellis, like a lot less material. But like, yeah, the Watson trellis is sort of like a high head training, but it's like, I don't know, maybe that's the wrong way, but the way it grows just reminds me of head training. I mean, obviously it's like got a cord on a grow zone and everything, but I don't know. I have the way that the growth sort of drapes out and falls down. It reminds me of head training and sort of the benefits that you get from head training, especially in a hot climate like that. Yeah. So we talked about a little bit of the fact that there's ideals and then there's like, you got to pay the bills. How does one make money in wine?
Good question. I'll get back to you on that one. Well, there's the classic saying, right? To make a small fortune, start with a large one.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that Hedges was really.
I finally understand what that means. Through a lot of heartache and idealism, I've come to realize the truth in that.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to. I mean, you go to the top regions in the world 100 years ago, they weren't making millions of dollars. They were just doing what they loved, making amazing wine, and they barely left their properties. Like it's I would say to make money in wine now takes a lot more people than it used to. A lot more salespeople, a lot more logistics people, a lot more. It's just there is this,
influencers.
Yeah, oh god, Instagram, social media. I mean, it's just like crazy the amount of channels you have to go through just to get your name out there. And we're an established brand, and we're struggling to, like we hear a lot of, oh yeah, I know Hedges. I guess like they know us, but we're just not really loud enough anymore, I guess. But it's hard to go from the heyday of the 90s. There were days back then where we would get POs for wines that we hadn't even bottled yet, and we would like bottle it and literally throw it on a truck the next day to try to fill the order. And that is totally not happening now. And so we're having, I think the whole industry needs to reevaluate what they're doing, and each winery needs to evaluate who they are, who they're marketing to, what they want to be in this big wine world. And we also have to tamp down the voices that are kind of anti. Like, I think I don't put wine in the alcohol category. I think wine is more part of culture and lifestyle versus, oh, I'm just going to go to a dive bar and get wasted. Like, who goes to a dive bar and drinks a ton of wine to get wasted? Like, that doesn't really happen. It's more about wine is part of like the food you're eating and the people you're with. And, you know, regions of the world have food that are special to them and wine that is special to them, and those go together. And it's much more of a cultural beverage than anything else. And I'm scared to lose that, and I think that that's probably the direction that Hedges is going, is creating more of an agritourism place on Red Mountain where people can come and experience that old world feel of what wine used to mean to the world.
Nice.
It's going to take time to get there, but we'll get there. And that means we have to downsize. I mean, we cannot, you can't just keep going at the same pace you were going, because there's too many big wineries out there. There's too many big distributors out there. And we are still a small family winery, even though we are a global brand. And so we need to figure out what we want to be. And I think what we want to be is something very special to less people than something not special to a lot of people.
So now I'm just giving you a little fun challenge here, but you say you're a small family brand, but you have a chateau.
We do. Yeah.
I mean, the photos are gorgeous on your website. Like, it looks truly palatial. Like, so tell us a little bit about that. Like, what should people expect when they come to visit? Is it stuffy?
No, not at all. So my mom is from Champagne, France.
Okay.
And so she also went to finishing school. She studied architecture. She majored in language. And then, so you've got my mom, and then you've got my dad, who grew up in the Tri-Cities, which, was a very desolate place back in the 50s. And he had to get out of here and travel the world, and that's how they met. So we have this very kind of French American. So you come here and it looks like, I mean, you're basically on a vacation to Europe when you show up. There's trees, there's wine, there's food, there's nice people. You might walk around and see my parents, maybe they're having a glass of wine, or they're fighting over the color of paint that something should be. Like, it's their home. I mean, they live here also. And it's very much like you're on somebody's property, that you're in their house, and it's much more warming and welcoming than people think it is. And I think that's our job as a family, and I say family broadly because I think of all of our employees as family, that you're really just showing up to a place where agriculture's happening, production's happening, and at the end of the day, everyone wants to sit down and have a glass of wine and a little bit of food and banter about life's troubles, Yeah. So that's kind of the vibe that we have. And I think people show up and see this big building and assume differently, but once they're here and once they experience it and meet my parents and meet our employees and Reed and me and my brother, it's very homey and welcoming.
Have you seen Drops of God?
Yes. I didn't watch all of it, but yeah, very briefly.
Has anyone compared you to her?
No. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because I didn't get too far into the show.
Oh, no. I just in appearance and wine, okay. That kind of thing. Yeah, like the wine, obviously thing. I mean, honestly, like I'm only looking at one picture on the website that I think is you. So maybe you look nothing like that in reality.
Okay. My hair is a little messier most of the
time. That's great.
But yeah, for the most part, we're all very down to earth. And I think, people need to remember that my parents started this from nothing. Um, and they very much are still part of the everyday. They love this place. They love what they've done, and they want to, they're just an American love story, really. Of we find ourselves in a position where we need to support our family, and my dad was in international produce sales, and that turned into them starting a wine export business. And then so we kind of went at it backwards, and then they just sort of fell in love with land and the winemaking and the production. And if there's one weed out of place, my dad will find it, and I'll get in trouble.
And so will I.
So, it's their lives, and
What's a weed?
What's a weed? It's a plant you don't want. And, I want different plants around than my parents do, and I think Reed wants different plants around too. So I think the younger generation, and I work here with my brother. He's head of sales and marketing. He has built most of this winery. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous what he does. He's a stonemason by heart.
Oh wow!
And I would say, wine is, he's just so in love with it and so in love with that culture. And our French history, we have a stonemason and a bread baker in our heritage. So I guess that's why we gravitated towards those things.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, my great grandfather used to restore churches.
What? Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
So yeah, he's built a lot of this. So none of it is, it's all very authentic. He studied old Roman architecture and materials and how to make his own cement mixes and lime washes. And so you really do feel like you have been transported to Europe. And yeah, we all have our little parts to play here, and I think that's what makes Hedges so special. Is it's not about one person, it's not just about the wine, it's not just about the vines, it's about the entire feel of it, and trying to keep entrepreneurship alive, family business alive, but also this ancient wine culture that my mom came from.
So I mean, we could probably talk for a while, but any is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you? Any sort of closing thoughts or big ideas or anything that we should talk about before we wrap it up?
I think, and I know your podcast is probably more organic focused, but just remembering that good wine is subjective, and that there isn't one way to do organic or biodynamic. I think it has to be very central to your farm. And I would say anybody interested in diving into that, or especially diving into native winemaking and trying to take that leap of having a little bit less control, there's people out there that you can talk to, and we're one of them. So we want to keep this going. We want to, not down with factory wine, because it does have its place in the world. But I think the more voices we have to get it out to the consumer that these beverages are different, and take a little bit more time when you're tasting wine and researching wine, and really thinking about what's in your glass. Maybe drink less, but drink better, and really find out what that means to you. Yeah, and I'll let Reed go.
No, yeah, I think that's really well said. And as I, as Sarah was talking, it kind of brought me back to when I came in and interviewed here. And I'll say, when I first saw the chateau, I was like, damn, this thing is super, it's huge, it's beautiful, it's intimidating. And I'd say when I started so I had my interview with Christoph and Sarah, and Christoph is just one of the greatest. I mean, he's an awesome guy, and just he's really one of a kind. I believe every one of the Hedges is one of a kind, and that's really what drew me into that decision to move over here and to start with them, to help them. And I got to say, it's the philosophy that Sarah just shared. That's something to kind of put your hat on at the end of the day, right? And to be honest, kind of growing up in the industry in Napa and Sonoma, I kind of lost hope a little bit with I don't know, with just wine in general, right? It felt like I was always and only ever going to be a worker, and that is it. There, I did not have any say or any part of the industry. I was just a cog within it, and here at Hedges, it's never really ever felt like that, and that's something that is super hard to transcend into the workforce, if that makes sense. I really believe that owners of a winery, owners of really any type of company, they're usually thinking one thing, and that's kind of to pay those bills, and also like how do we get out of this, right? Like how can I kind of get out of this and make as much money as I can. And that is really the antithesis of what is going on here at Hedges. And to see Tom and Marie put in 40 years of some really, truly hard work creating Hedges, and to still be putting in that work as we speak today, that says something to the character of them. And to have the brand based off of them and based off of that name, Hedges, that's a privilege to help uphold that and to be a part of that. And so, granted, there are a lot of difficulties in the industry, and farming in general can be challenging. And really, the way that we're farming and the way that we're creating wine, in some ways, might appear as the hardest way to do it. But I not to speak for Sarah, it really feels like the right way, in the sense of the way that the wine, the way that the grapes are wanting to be. And I think we've really spoken around that topic a lot, of kind of letting the vines talk, letting the wine speak for itself. And that's kind of our invitation to the people hearing this, is just like, what we're saying and what we're feeling. I invite you guys to taste the wine and to feel it for yourself. And I think that there's a lot of misconception of vineyards and of wineries and their accessibility. And that's something that I believe Sarah and I are trying to debunk within the industry, is that we need more wineries accessible. We need more vineyards and more vineyard managers and viticulturists to open up their books and say, hey guys, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. And that is so that we can all feel and taste and be a part of that wine and that experience, because it is all of us that's doing this. And that's really what I'm trying to help my crew understand, of like, hey, like, taste these wines, guys, like try this, because this is literally what you guys are doing, right? Like, none of this, these 110 acres, none of this would be possible without those hands out there doing that every single day at 4 a.m. until whatever o'clock, right? And it's got to be every day, and we can't stop, right? So it's having a sense of love and a sense of or maybe the lack of pride in what we do, and really being happy and feeling like things are like this is enough, right? To feel like we are at a point where what we have is enough, and we are enough ourselves. That's what really shows in the wines, right? And so, big shout out to the Hedges, and I really feel that there's a lot of good changes coming, but I also feel that we need more people to pioneer these changes and to take these risks and to try something new. And that's why I'm pretty stoked to hear you, Adam, saying that you're trying to to grow vines up a tree. Like, dude, like that is like that is like magic to me, man. Like, big shout out to you too, right? That's what we need. And if we can promote
I mean,
that,
I do very little. They do a lot of the growing themselves. Really.
That's right. That's right. So it's really the industry is a really great place, and I invite more people to step into the industry and to work within this. And I do notice a bit of a downtick in people wanting to be winemakers and people wanting to be vineyard managers and viticulturists, and it's because it's freaking hard.
It's hard,
and
yeah.
And it can feel unforgiving, but that's why we need to have people come in and know that there is no more judgment, right? We want to try everyone's wines, and we want everybody to be doing this together, right? We want Hedges to be part of the community, and we want the community to be a part of Hedges.
And it is, yeah, I would say probably one of the most rewarding careers I mean, just again, going back to that history and culture, you're a part of something that's been around a long time, and you're just this little blip in the history of it. And I think we're at a very interesting time in the wine industry, and a very almost kind of scary time. But if we can keep people excited and keep sharing stories, and that's why podcasts like you are great, because you're sharing the stories, you're getting behind the bottle. I think which is very important, and so we're grateful for people like you spreading the word. And if people want more of Hedges, I also do our Instagram page, so there's a lot of fun. I try to be educational, fun. Reed gets on there quite a bit, talking about vineyard stuff. And
what is your Instagram?
Hedges Wine.
Hedges Wine, and your website, hedgesfamilyestate.com?
Yep. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, check us out. We try to do a lot of videos, a lot of chatting about vineyard stuff, and I usually pop on more during harvest. But yeah, just we're super transparent. We don't really hold back on what we're doing or what we're all about. So.
Yeah, and if people have questions, give us a call, and Sarah and I will talk to you guys, whatever that might be. It's really important. We really are trying to push education and also push it in a way of we want to learn ourselves too, right? So it's all together, and all just trying to move that dial just a little bit in the right direction, right? It's that we're not going to change everything in one swoop. We need time, but we also need to have more discussions like what we're having right now. And really one of the best advice that I've ever got was from an Uber driver, and he told me to follow my enthusiasm, and I say that to listeners now, and it's really helped me out in my life. And if you're feeling enthusiastic about whatever that might be within the industry or outside of the industry or just in general, it's really important to follow that, because that's you following yourself, right? And so that's a pretty rewarding feeling to have is to follow that and following the excitement of what's out there.
I have a comment and a final question. So the comment is, we haven't talked about the labels, but the labels are kind of throwback, beautiful, like with a crest, and it sort of feels like these are retro. I don't know, like some European place, Bordeaux or who knows where.
Yeah.
Almost Germany in a way, some of them, like
I get that with like the eagle kind of.
Yeah, there's like an eagle and like the sort of the Gothic script and stuff on some of them.
We do all those in house, just so if you meet my whole family at one time, you'll understand the labels a little bit better. They are definitely obviously very old world influence.
Right.
My dad has his strong opinions. He's very image driven and wants to see, he almost has more of like a modern twist to it. My mom and brother usually win out on that stuff. And then my brother, you'll definitely understand the labels. He is, I would say, a master at looking at a blank space and filling it with beautiful things. Whether that's architecture or the labels. So yeah, he does all of that in-house. And I think he really tries to create kind of an emotion when you look at the labels. Yeah. And I think he does a great job with that.
Yeah. Nice. So my final question for you, I'm now looking at a picture of Reed. Which of the two of you has the messier hair?
Oh, God. Oh, no. Right now? That would be Reed's always got a hat on though. So
I got the hat on, so I don't really have to worry about it. I'd say that's a leftover from soccer. You got to have long hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what I was talking about. The vines reaching out and grabbing me. Literally, the tendrils are like ripping out my freaking hair as I'm going.
There you go.
Fine, so that's kind of bad, but yeah, that's.
I think my website photo still has short hair.
Oh yeah,
my hair is like as longer than Reed's.
Yeah.
It's a
nice.
disaster.
Yep.
I think that's why I'm pretty comfortable with winemaking and like not having controls. I've never been able to control my hair. So
nice.
Start.
I do find people with curly hair are a little bit more laid back and a little kind of funky.
Hey.
Yep, so we're on it over here. I don't know about you, Adam. I hope you got long hair, but if not, let it ride, man.
Well, yeah, if I had, yeah, mine is the opposite. I just got rid of it because I'm like a minimalist and and wanted
and you're working out in the heat too, so that might be a little
exactly, yeah. It's more like air conditioning.
Humidity is a no-go.
Yeah, try that.
I'm a nudist is the reality. Like the less I have on me, the better.
Really getting back to nature. I like
Yeah.
Keeping it real.
Well, thanks, guys. I know we could talk for a whole lot more. I mean, we barely scratched the surface, and there were things that we talked about before that we didn't even come back to. So but it's been really exciting to talk, and I look forward to talking again and trying your wines. Hey, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you joining in to these podcasts. If you'd like to support these podcasts, probably the best way to do that is to just join Substack as a paid subscriber at beyondorganicwine.substack.com. It also gives you access to all the paid episodes and other content that I will be releasing on Substack. And I also want to thank Colden Pro for this beautiful closing music.